Law Talk Radio with Todd Marquardt is sponsored by the Marquardt Law Firm and does not attempt to solve your individual legal problems upon the basis of the information contained herein. Instead, contact an attorney to discuss the specific facts and circumstances of your unique situation. The views and opinions of this program do not reflect the views of the Salem Media Group.
It's time for Talk Law Radio with Todd Marquardt. Todd Marquardt, attorney at law in Texas. If you're a millionaire or a thousandaire, Talk Law Radio is now on the air. Call in with your business law question, your elder law question, veteran aid, Medicaid, build a business to get paid. 210-308-8867. Or ask a question online at marquardtlawfirm.com. That's MARQUARDT lawfirm.com. And now, it's Talk Law Radio with Todd Marquardt.
Welcome to Talk Law Radio with your host, Todd Marquardt. Thank you for joining us. Let me talk about Falcon Bank. Decisions about your future can be difficult, but at Falcon Bank, our trust department can make planning for tomorrow a positive experience. From estate planning and administration of trust to investment management, including real estate and mineral management, Falcon Bank offers solutions with an honest evaluation of what you need. Call Falcon Bank at 210-489-4150 to discuss how they may be of service to you.
And this is Talk Law Radio with Todd Marquardt. I'm your co-host, Christiana Villegas, and we're here with Todd Marquardt, and coming on the phone later is going to be Tyler Rutherford on a new episode that we have today. If you're tuning in on the radio, you can also watch us through our Facebook live stream when you visit Talk Law Radio and find the Scales of Justice. You could be able to send your comments about any questions you have on employment laws, especially right now when a lot of people should be staying at home if you're in the shutdown. But if you're an essential worker, if you have any questions about what are the laws and benefits that you can still be able to understand are in place right now, then send us your comments through our live stream. We cannot accept any calls right now. But aside from talking about our live stream and our sponsors, what's the mission of Talk Law Radio, Mr. Marquardt?
The mission of Talk Law Radio is to help you discover your legal issue blind spots by listening to me talk about the law on the radio. The State Bar of Texas is the state agency that governs attorney law licenses, and the State Bar wants attorneys like me to talk about the law, but because legal advice must be tailored to the specific circumstances of each case, and laws are ever changing, material discussed herein is meant for general informational purposes only, and is not to be construed as tax, legal, or investment advice. Although the information has been gathered from sources believed to be reliable, please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information should be relied upon only when coordinated with individual professional advice. Before we get started, let's begin with a prayer.
Of course.
Dear God, thank you for this day, and thank you for all the gifts and blessings that you give to us. Please forgive us for our sins, for our mistakes, for doing the wrong thing or failing to do your will. Please help attorney Tyler Rutherford, Christiana, and me give good information to the listeners about employment law today. Help us to use the gifts and talents that you have provided for the good of your people, for our own good, and for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. So, Tyler should be on the phone with us. Are you there, Tyler? Can you hear us?
I gotcha.
Terrific, then. It's great to be able to have you on the phone live with us here on Talk Law Radio. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves?
Well, let's see. I'm a San Antonio native, born and raised. I went to Robert E. Lee High School, and then did my undergraduate work at St. Mary's University when it was still staffed by some good Marianist people, folks who really took their job seriously. And then I went on to St. Mary's Law School and graduated in 1996, cum laude. and I'm a proud father of a son, and I've been practicing law for over 22 years. Do a lot of employment law. I must say I'm not board certified in employment law, but I know quite a bit about it. I do a lot of it, and I'm happy to be here.
Great. Thank you for joining us. This is an exciting time to be talking about employment law because COVID-19, as everybody is aware, has affected everybody's employment in one way or another.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I've been getting a lot of calls related to COVID issues.
Even you are working from home, right?
That's correct. I have shut my office down and moved to my house, and I'm working remotely. But I'm fortunate in that I can do that. I know a lot of people that are out of work and they can't work from home, or they have to. They're front lines people. So I consider myself to be very fortunate.
I guess if you're working from home, nobody can sexually harass you.
Yeah, or you could sexually harass yourself. I don't know how that works. But
Oh, goodness.
I don't think we should talk about that.
yeah, you could sue yourself. I don't know.
When that's definitely having to separate personal time and work time when you are working from home, if you're fortunate enough to do that.
Yeah.
Especially right now with needing to stay at home, a lot of people are wondering, when are we going to get back to normal? When are we going to start being able to go back to restaurants and our events and start planning for things? But it's going to be uncertain until that time. I remember a lot of people were really looking forward to being able to go back to church on Easter, but right now is still the time that we should practice social distancing, especially when the Bible does say in Ecclesiastes to know that there is a time for everything, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. And knowing when business should be open and be able to function, and knowing when you need to close up, that's a real hard decision between a lot of small business owners, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think the mayor just extended the stay-in-place order until at least the end of the month, and of course, the idea is that we've all heard this: flatten the curve. It's a great idea, and I think we all, even after the order is lifted, if it unless it gets extended further, I suggest we all do what we can to stay home even more, because there's going to be a second and third wave of this stuff. But of course, we're all going to have to balance, having to go to work and make money to live versus our health. So this is a very, very difficult time.
What is one of the most basic principles that our listeners need to know about when it comes to employment law?
Well, in employment law, so I practice from, there's basically two ways of looking at employment law. One from the employer side and one from the employee side, and I focus on the employee side. And basically it comes down to, in Texas anyway, it's not what rights you have, it's what rights you don't have. And, Texas is what we call an employment at will state. And an employment at will basically means that you can be terminated or at any time with or without cause. I mean, for any reason, bad reason, no reason. If your employer doesn't like the way you comb your hair, you can be terminated. Now, there are certain exceptions to that, and that's where I come in. There's common law exceptions to that, what we call common law court-created exceptions, and then there's statutory exceptions to that. That either the U.S. Congress has passed or that the Texas legislature has passed. And I'm here to talk about those today.
Well, that's going to be great to be able to go further into detail when we go and have more time during our show. What are some of the most common cases that you've heard people getting and losing their jobs for?
Well, recently it's just been people laid off and just let go because again, the service sector is shut down, and a lot of non-essential businesses have shut down, and So, for those people, for most of them, the only recourse they're going to have is going to be filing an unemployment claim with the Texas Workforce Commission.
Let's talk about that when we come back from this break.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Please stay on the phone with us, Tyler. It's only going to take about a minute. And if you're tuning in right now, this is Talk Law Radio with Todd Marquardt. We can't accept any phone calls today, but you can still watch us through Facebook live stream. Send us your comments in Talk Law Radio and look for the scales of justice. We'll be discussing employment benefits, the laws behind it, the COVID-19 unemployment benefits that are to come. So stay tuned. Send us your questions as soon as possible so we can read them on the air. That is Talk Law Radio with Todd Marquardt. We'll be right back after this short commercial. See you soon.
You've heard him on Talk Law Radio. Now work with his firm yourself. Marquardt Law Firm is the go-to firm in San Antonio for wills, trusts, and powers of attorney. Want to have a say on who will get your money and assets when you die instead of leaving it up to a judge? Then you need a proper estate plan in place, and Marquardt Law Firm can help you do just that. They can also develop a strategy for your long-term care financing and help maneuver the complicated Medicaid process for your family. Call them today to schedule your no-cost legal consultation. Call 210-530-4278. Again, that's 210-530-4278. Protect what's yours with Marquardt Law Firm. MarquardtLawFirm.com.
Welcome back to Talk Law Radio with your host, Todd Marquardt, and I'm your co-host, Cristiana Villegas. And while we were on break, we have waiting on the phone with us Tyler Rutherford of Rutherford and Rutherford Law Firm PLLC. We're discussing employment benefits. Tyler, can you still hear us on the phone?
I can.
That's great. Very glad that you can hear us, and we are already receiving our first comments in our Facebook live stream. I can see Miss Sherry Hensley Loftus, one of our previous guests. She's giving us a shout out saying, "Hey guys, I'm Sherry now." Thank you so much, Sherry. And you can send us your comments, any questions you have about employment benefits, the laws behind it, COVID-19 unemployment benefits, by just following us on Talk Law Radio. I'll read your comments as soon as I can see them. Now, really quick, I have a question and a joke, Tyler, if I can ask. We were just discussing about the laws of being made unemployed by at-will employment. So I have a small question, and this is my joke. Has anyone come to you from being let go for giving attitude to their boss? For example, a man goes in for a job interview and sits down with the boss, and the boss asks him, "What do you think is your worst quality?" The man says, "Well, I'm probably too honest." And the boss says, "That's not a bad thing. I think being honest is a good quality." The man replies, "I don't care about what you think."
Good one. Good one. Yeah.
Yeah,
all too true.
So like Tyler said, you can be fired for any reason or no reason at all, but you're not allowed to discriminate. Right, Tyler?
Yeah, that's right. And that brings us, if we want to start getting into that brings us to the statutory exceptions to the employee at will doctrine. And most of those are the big, I guess the most significant area in these exceptions would be Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, prohibiting discrimination based on race, sex, religion, being a member of a protected class. We also run into Family Medical Leave Act discrimination. We run into the Americans with Disabilities Act discrimination. And those are probably the big federal exceptions. There are some other Texas legislative exceptions that we encounter a bunch, and those would be. This happens quite frequently when if you get hurt on the job and your employer is a subscriber to the workers' compensation program, you file a workers' compensation claim, and a lot of employers don't like that, and then they terminate you. So an employer cannot discriminate against you for filing a workers' comp claim. And we run into those cases quite a bit, and I handle a number of those.
And do you think that a lot of those kind of claims might be filed for the medical workers who are putting their lives at risk being on the front lines of COVID-19?
Yeah, we'll probably see those crop up. We're gonna, and I've also been getting calls, this is disturbing. I guess before, maybe in like about 10 days ago to 2 weeks ago, I started getting calls from a number of nurses who had been terminated because they wanted to wear their personal protection equipment, masks, etc. And the hospitals, believe it or not, were telling them they could not wear their masks because it was scaring their patients. Now, in the last 4 or 5 days, that's completely flipped and turned around. But that's a no-no. You can't do that. Hospitals, they're changing course on that, but I've seen that recently.
Well, if you're experiencing that yourself, if you're a nurse and you're listening to us here on Talk Law Radio, I'm sorry we can't accept any phone calls for you to call in and make any comments, but if you want to share your stories, if you're going through this right now, follow us on Talk Law Radio. You can see us through our live stream. Share with us your comments if you're going through this ordeal right now. Yeah,
so the issues that Tyler's been talking about are discrimination claims. And you've probably heard some of these court cases, Tyler, or even faced some of them yourself. What would be an example where somebody's discriminated against because of their race?
Well, these cases, they happen. I deal with a number of them. It can just be the most blatant, ugly, racially charged invectives that are launched against an employee. They just turn your stomach, and then they can be quite subtle. For me as an attorney, and most of the cases that I take, these folks can't really afford my hourly rate, so I'll take them on a contingency fee, meaning that I won't collect a fee unless I recover. So when I'm selecting a case like that, I have to be careful in what I select, and I have to find a case that is going to be viable. In other words, I have to be able to make the claim, and for like racial and sexual type discrimination cases, I have to be able to prove that case. And that is the most challenging obstacle in making these cases, is being able to prove it, because most employers are pretty savvy, and they're not going to put anything in writing or put anything in an email that evidences overt signs of racial or sexual discrimination. So I've got to get the evidence. Now, sometimes you get lucky and you get a smoking gun, you get a couple emails, or you get an email. But what I tell my clients, and if you're in Texas, it's okay to record people, even without their knowledge. Texas is what they call a one-party state when it comes to making recordings. And if you've got a smartphone in your pocket, you probably have a voice recording app. And I tell my clients, if you suspect or you're starting to see a pattern of discrimination, go ahead and record that. You can record another person that you're talking to, even without their knowledge or consent. What you can't do is you can't take your recording device, set it down in a room, leave the room, and record another person or another two people talking. So it's important to get the evidence, to get something in writing, to get a recording, or to get, a witness that will testify, I heard him say such and such, I heard him say that. The problem with the witness testimony is that most of those witnesses are still employed by that employer, and they don't want to turn against their employer. So getting the evidence is what I tell my clients.
I was going to ask that because, for one thing, if it's racial or especially sexual discrimination, harassment, then it's the fear of being able to even find someone who believes that person and is able to relay what it is that's making them so uncomfortable in that workplace, and then asking a witness to put their own job and their own position at risk as well. But what about if you're recommending people can be able to record, but these job sites that have those confidentiality purposes that you have to keep your device turned off, that you're not allowed to carry it with you on your job site?
Well, that can be a problem. There's this field of law can get messy. Any evidentiary issue is always messy, but you do the best you can. Of course, there are confidentiality provisions that you do sign a lot of places where you do go to work. But if you are being subject to overt discrimination, throw that confidentiality provision out the window, get the recording, and let's go to court. That confidentiality provision, you can't use that. An employer can't use that to shield himself from these laws.
So would a couple examples of discrimination be if somebody was denied a promotion or if they got fired because of their race or religion or sex?
Yeah, that's in the employment arena. We call that an adverse employment event or an adverse employment action, and that could be, the most drastic would be termination, of course. But yeah, failure to receive a promotion, a change in getting a worse schedule. It's not like having to work the night shift, having your desk put in a corner, all alone, like you're in third grade. But again, you have to couple these adverse employment actions with some sort of evidence of, discrimination. So again, you still have to have the evidence. I have people that call me all the time that have suffered an adverse employment event, and they suspect that it's racial. They suspect that it's based on sex or one of these other religion, one of these protected areas. But unless I have the evidence, that's not going to get you into court. You have to, a suspicion, a hunch, that doesn't get you there. You got to carry the football to the goal line, and you're going to need evidence.
And the employer's defense is that usually, well, he or she had bad performance, and that's why.
That's the way that plays out. In the employment law context, we use what's called the McDonnell-Douglas burden shifting paradigm, and so the way that works is the employee will make a charge of discrimination, and then the employee or the employer can present a valid reason for termination, or what they claim to be valid, and then it's up to the employee to go back again and rebut that, and to say no, that's a pretextual reason. It's not a legitimate reason, and so it's a little bit of legal ping pong. But again, bottom line is you have to show that reason given is pretextual. In other words, it has no validity, and you did suffer an adverse employment action because of one of these protected categories: race, sex, religion, etc.
So if you're a business and you're worried that somebody might make a claim against you, you should probably have a general counsel attorney, a business attorney, to give you advice about employee handbooks, policies and procedures, and the steps that you should take to discipline an employee for bad conduct or bad performance. And attorneys at Marquardt Law Firm just happen to provide that service. How about age discrimination? What are some basics with age discrimination?
Well, so there was a presumption. It's not courts don't follow it as strictly as much anymore. But if you're over 40 and you're terminated, that and you want to make a claim, that's you got something going for you. But you still have to. That presumption is not going to carry the day. Again, you're going to have to to show that your employer's motivation was based on age, and again, it all comes down to evidence.
Now I got a question.
There are certain there's an area of age discrimination where if there is sort of like a mass firing, and you can show statistically that it affects older people more than substantially more than the younger.
Let's talk about that when we come back from our break.
Yeah, I want to know what job sites are firing people who reach 40. I thought that was an athletic thing, but we're going to have a bit of a long break, so bear with us, Tyler. It's only going to be a little over 3 minutes, but we will return back on Talk Law Radio with attorney Tyler Rutherford of Rutherford and Rutherford PLLC while we discuss employment laws. We can't take calls, but visit us on Facebook, Talk Law Radio, for your comments. Welcome back to Talk Law Radio with your host, Todd Marquardt, and I'm your co-host, Christiana Villegas. And on the line, we have Tyler Rutherford of Rutherford and Rutherford PLLC. Tyler, can you hear us?
I can.
Okay, great. You're still live on the air here with us on Talk Law Radio. Tyler is tying up our phone lines, but we're able to stream through Facebook live stream. Follow us and send us your comments in the video for employment laws. Just like Roxanne Mendler, who has joined us, she says, great show topic and perfect timing, as a lot of people who are either essential workers having to worry about their health and job security, and many others who are going under unemployment, some who might have been already unemployed due to age discrimination. Right, Mr. Marquardt?
Yeah, and Tyler was just about to talk about reductions in force and how that relates to age discrimination. So let us know what that means, Tyler. How is a reduction in force different from a layoff or a furlough?
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about that sort of as an issue separate and apart from. I'd like to decouple that from the age issue.
Okay.
I've been getting a lot of calls. As you know, Saudi Arabia and Russia are in an oil war right now, and they've been flooding the market. That's why gas prices are so cheap. That connected with the fact that nobody's driving has driven the price of oil down. I think it's like $26 a barrel. And so when that happens, we're getting a lot of, we have Texas has a lot of oil field workers, and they're getting laid off right and left. And so there's an area of law, or there's a piece of legislation called the WARN Act, the Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act. Now, I don't practice this type of law, but if you reach out to me through my website, I can put you in touch with an attorney who does this kind of law. But basically, the WARN Act, if you are working for an employer with 100 or more workers and you receive a layoff, you're entitled to notice of that layoff 60 days before it happens. Now, there are a lot of restrictions on that. If you have a plant closing, you're entitled to. Now, again, you still have to be employed by an employer with 100 or more workers. But then, if there's a plant closing, you have to show that there's at least 50 full-time workers at that plant. Now, the way that applies to the oil field, because a lot of these drilling companies and support companies are sort of decentralized, there have been attempts by oil field workers to sort of aggregate drilling units into one and make that into one plant so that the act would apply to them. And that has been met with mixed success in the courtroom. But according to the case law that I've read, if you are an oil field worker, you want to try and link the different drilling operations in a close physical proximity, geographical proximity, to try and meet that, to try and aggregate to get over that 50 employee limit, because most drilling sites are staffed, by less than that. And so I've seen a lot of that. And, but again, I'm going to tell your listeners that, if you've been laid off because of this COVID thing, your best remedy is to file for unemployment with the Texas Workforce Commission. Now, I know they're flooded right now, but that's where you need to go. You need to go to the Texas Workforce Commission and file a claim.
And we could be able to go more into detail later in the show about how to file the claim for unemployment, but you said that you had referrals that you might be able to give if they visit your website. Your website was rutherfordandrutherford.com. Is that correct?
Yeah, I bet it used to be. It's been updated. I'll give you my URL.
Okay, URL.
Yeah, it's rutherfordandrutherford.com, and there you will see the different practice areas. And if you go on that website, I also have a blog post on the recording issue that your listeners might find helpful. It tells you what you can and can't do when it comes to recording, your employer.
Okay, then. So that would be rutherfordandrutherford.com. Rutherford is spelled R-U-T for Tango, H-E-R, F like Frank, O-R-D, and the word and, rutherford.com. And Mr. Marquardt is available for businesses at his website, marquardtlawfirm.com, as we're talking about employment laws here on Talk Law Radio, sorry, getting a little tongue-tied here. Talk Law Radio with Tyler Rutherford as our guest on the phone. Can you tell us a little bit about the process you go through when filing for those claims of people who feel they've been unjustly discriminated against?
So, if you have a Title VII claim, a race, age, sexual harassment claim, you need to file a charge of discrimination with the EEOC, and I can give you the EEOC, the San Antonio division. Their number, if you guys got a pen,
sure,
I can repeat it later, but it's 800-669-4000, 800-669-4000. Now, they are busy right now. Everybody is busy and understaffed, but you need to, I encourage everybody to file their charge of discrimination within 180 days of their the adverse employment action. And when you file that charge, you will meet with a field representative of the EEOC, and you need to be as broad as you can in making your charge of discrimination. Because if you're narrow and you limit your charge, the things you tell the field agent, which goes into your charge, you are limited to what's in there if you subsequently have to file a lawsuit.
So should they call an attorney first to learn about how to do that?
Yeah. Absolutely, I counsel my clients in filling out in filling out the charge of discrimination because it's a very critical part of the process. So once that charge has been made, then the EEOC will investigate the charge, and our EEOC, the division here in San Antonio, they do great work. But again, they are understaffed and overworked, and so generally, if I have a client that comes in and I see they've got a good discrimination case, I'll help them file the charge of discrimination with the EEOC, and then I will do what's called I will send file a request for a right to sue letter. And so the EEOC will get that request, and they're more than happy to issue these because it's less work off their desk. It takes a case off their docket. But they give you a right to sue letter, and then once you have that letter, then you have a certain time period to file a lawsuit. And then that's when I come in, and start taking depositions, set the case for trial and get it on.
So I just want to be able to clarify the timeline of at least actions that people can fully understand. That way they know that although each person is going through a unique individual situation, they can at least understand what the process is in the correct form to be pointed in the right direction once they find that legal counsel. So should they call that 800 number first, or should they find an attorney that they can confide in to help them with this discrimination?
Yeah, so, I always tell people, talk to a lawyer first, because, the EOC, those officers, they are trained in the law, but they're not lawyers. I would have no problem telling your listeners to contact a lawyer before they get in touch with the EEOC to help guide them through this tricky process of filing a technically correct and broad claim that you can use to sort of springboard yourself into the courtroom and get to where you need to go.
And you're still available if they contact you through your website, rutherford.com.
Yeah, absolutely. I have there is a way to, there's an email address that goes right to my desktop. It's info Rutherford Law Firm at gmail.com. It's on the website, the Rutherford and Rutherford.com website, and you can get in contact with me that way.
I just wanted to clarify that Tyler kept saying EEOC. I wanted to let everybody know that stands for Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. It's the federal agency that handles these things, right, Tyler?
That's right. Now, just so your listeners are aware, the Texas has sort of enacted a companion piece of legislation to Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, and that's the Texas Commission on Human Rights Act. And I try, as a practitioner, there's usually there's two forums, or I think the plural of forums is fora. There's two fora that you can use in pursuing these claims. One is through the federal courts.
And the second one we'll be covering over when we come back from this commercial. And thank you so much for sticking with us, Tyler. We'll be right back when we return to Talk Law Radio with Todd Marquardt, discussing about employment laws and discrimination claims. Don't change that channel, and send us your comments and questions in Facebook Live.
You've heard him on Talk Law Radio. Now work with his firm yourself. Marquardt Law Firm is the go-to firm in San Antonio for wills, trusts, and powers of attorney. Want to have a say on who will get your money and assets when you die instead of leaving it up to a judge? Then you need a proper estate plan in place, and Marquardt Law Firm can help you do just that. They can also develop a strategy for your long-term care financing and help maneuver the complicated Medicaid process for your family. Call them today to schedule your no-cost legal consultation. Call 210-530-4278. Again, that's 210-530-4278. Protect what's yours with Marquardt Law Firm. MarquardtLawFirm.com.
Welcome back to Talk Law Radio with your host, Todd Marquardt. We're still live on the air and on Facebook live stream. We're also trying to fit into YouTube. If you have any friends that are avoiding you on Facebook and don't want to get involved on that, maybe they're YouTubers, maybe they're trying to look for new information. So we have our YouTube channel looking for Talk Law Radio, and you'll find us with the Scales of Justice. Subscribe to our channel, help us reach 1,000 subscribers, and that way we could start streaming through YouTube live stream for your friends to be able to watch as well. If you aren't a subscriber and you want to have a say in what kind of topics we discuss on our future episodes, then send us the comments. We're always looking for them. We're thanking our viewers right now, Miss Sherry and Miss Roxanne, who are giving us their comments about the show on Facebook live stream. Tyler, are you still on the phone with us? Can you hear us still?
I'm here.
That's great to have you live on the air with us for Talk Law Radio. And I had just cut you off. You were helping us understand what two forms people have to go through when filing their discrimination claims.
Yeah, so the state courts have sort of what they call concurrent jurisdiction over these claims, but you have to be, and I prefer, as working from the employee side, I prefer to stay in state courts because when you get into a federal court, there are certain procedural defenses that an employer can use that really are not available to them in state court. And state courts also have a fewer evidentiary restrictions that are present in the federal court system. So generally, when I craft one of these complaints, when I file my lawsuit, I will structure it under the state companion legislation and try and remain in a state court as opposed to a federal court. Now, a lot of times these cases get what they call removed to federal court, and you find yourself litigating in a federal court, which I'm quite comfortable to do that in the federal arena. But I prefer state courts because, again, because of the evidentiary restrictions are not so tight.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That's the reason that I was admitted to the Western District here in San Antonio, because I was representing an employer, and somebody made the comment that, hey, that guy's not admitted to the federal court. Let's take the case there. And so I found a friend to sponsor me. Give a shout out to attorney Frank Avery. He stood up for me, and in that type of court you have to have an attorney sponsor. So that's all about the Texas Commission on Human Rights. Is there anything else about discrimination claims of all kinds that you want to talk about, or do you want to change now to talking about whistleblowers?
Yeah, my thoughts were there's something I wanted to talk about, tell your listeners about before we get into that, because I know we may be running out of time. But in Texas, we have what's called the Sabine Pilot exception to the employment at will doctrine. And that's a case. That's a case law. That's the name of a case that the Supreme Court decided sometime back. Sabine Pilot, like the Sabine River. And basically, that doctrine says that you cannot be fired for your refusal to perform an illegal act. And I run into those cases quite a bit, especially in the oil field, where people have been told by their supervisor to dump a bunch of frack water, on a golf course or behind a subdivision and not dispose of it properly, and they don't want to do it, and they get fired. And that sort of legal framework pops up in a lot of areas. So, folks, if you've been told that you need to perform something that's illegal and you refuse to do it and you get fired, call me, because I love those cases. Juries love those cases. Courts love those cases because nobody likes to get told to do something illegal and get fired for it. So I just wanted to make sure your listeners are aware of that before we run out of time.
Okay. I know you would think that the employees would be looking out for their employers, trying to follow the rules that they understand are in place for whatever division it is, whatever kind of work practice they're involved in. They're trying to secure not only their own jobs, but secure it for everybody else to make sure the company isn't breaking the rules.
Yeah. So then what is a whistleblower?
Well, the Whistleblower Act, that pops up in a number of different contexts. So you have you run into this with I see it a lot with like Medicare and Medicaid fraud. Clinics and hospitals or doctors' offices are double billing, triple billing, or using the wrong code to receive more Medicaid or Medicare money that they're entitled to. And if you're a bookkeeper or you're working for one of these clinics and you find out that this is going on, you need to notify the appropriate authorities immediately. Then if you're terminated because of that, you got a cause of action. But also, you under the Whistleblower Act. Well, there's different provisions, but the federal one, you are entitled to. In other words, if you blow the whistle on your boss, there's double billing, triple billing, and there's a substantial amount of money involved, you are entitled to get part of that as compensation for alerting the federal government that this is going on. And I think that's a great thing, because it motivates people to stop, to stop others from wasting taxpayer money.
Yeah, we don't want that. Okay. No. So I want to take a moment to talk about COVID-19 again. I wanted to let everyone know that there's some help out there from the federal government if you've been diagnosed or someone in your family has been diagnosed with COVID-19 and you're going to miss work. First, there's the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, FFCRA, which requires that health plans cover COVID-19 testing at no cost to the patient. And then there's a requirement that employers with fewer than 500 employees provide paid sick leave to employees affected by COVID-19 in certain circumstances. And there are exceptions, of course. There's payroll tax credits allowed, and also there could be paid sick leave. There's also recently the CARES Act was passed, which is a $2.2 trillion emergency relief package.
That's trillion with a T.
And it provides additional unemployment benefits, and so of course you have to go through Texas Workforce Commission to get that type of thing.
I thought I heard that there was also a bill passed where businesses could take out loans, but if they kept their employees, they won't have to pay it back.
Yeah, that's the Payroll Protection Act. And so if you haven't yet applied for that, you probably should get with your banker, accountant, or attorney to learn how to do that.
If you want to learn a little bit more about those acts that Mr. Marquardt listed, visit his blog on marquartlawfirm.com so you can see the list of acts that he just described. That's marquartlawfirm.com, MARQUAR, D for David, T like Tango, lawfirm.com.
So this is our last segment, Tyler, and Marquardt Law Firm sponsors the show, and we focus on business and estate law, so we're always asking our guests about their legacy. What would you say you want your legacy to be?
Well, and I guess you asked this in a financial, from a financial perspective. In answering the question that way, I have got a son, and I want to make sure that he's provided for. So, the first thing that I encourage people to do is to make a will. You'd be surprised at how many people don't, and in this uncertain time, you need to get on that. You need to do it. Texas is a kind of a unique state in that the probate process is pretty streamlined, and if you do have a will, your estate will can get distributed without a bunch of attorney's fees and bankers eating it up, court fees. So, but if you don't, then you run into, and Todd can tell you all about this. If you don't do that, then things get much more complicated. Attorney's fees get to be much more substantial, and your estate can get eaten up by the courts and lawyers if you don't properly prepare. So I just encourage all your listeners to get a will, or if you have substantial assets, to establish a trust. Maybe, and Todd can tell you about a pour-over trust, and to take care of your assets and protect them from creditors, to protect them from bankers, lawyers, judges. You need that kind of protection.
But for bankers and trust and wills, I think sponsoring us on our show with Falcon Bank can also help, can't they?
Yeah, Falcon Bank has a trust company, and they can make planning for tomorrow a positive experience, from estate planning and administration of trusts to investment management, including real estate and mineral management. Falcon Bank offers solutions with an honest evaluation of what you need. Call Falcon Bank at 210-489-4150 to discuss how they may be of service to you. So, in addition to just leaving money to people, your will or trust or estate plan can leave the values that you want them to achieve. You can say, this gift is conditioned upon you graduating from college. You can say, this gift is conditioned upon you getting rehab and stop alcoholism and drug addiction. You can leave a trust for your spouse if you're worried about him or her getting remarried and leaving everything to a replacement spouse.
But if you're worried that you don't have enough information to go and understand this, go through the process, then visit our website on talklawradio.com so you can hear our full podcast list of our previous episodes. Trying to reach 1,000 subscribers on YouTube so we could start live streaming there, Talk Law Radio, and find our Apple Podcasts, Talk Law Radio Podcast, so you can get our full playlist. We'll be back next week with Jim Mullen. Thank you so much, Tyler, for being on the phone with us. We'll be back next Saturday live.